I'm Dave. Welcome to Dave Takes It On. I've received so many comments and requests to challenge the lies, myths, misconceptions and total lack of basic understanding with things people say about EVs. I've finally decided to respond to some of the worst offenders and offer my comments. I do say that any similarity to any person, living or dead, is purely incidental. I'm not directly quoting or referring to a specific person or video, and this is for two reasons. Well, first, it will encourage people who haven't seen that specific video to go and click on what I consider to be misleading, incorrect, or an outright utter lie, or clickbait. And second, it will encourage people who have already seen what they think is that specific video to click on it again, well, if the cap fits. All these are my opinions, yours may differ. Well, today I reply to a video from Australia, and no, definitely not Sam the Electric Viking. There are other YouTubers in Australia, you know, it's not Sam. And this video clearly shows the stupidity of the arguments used to make a point against EVs. Well, the host portrays himself as a voice of reason. He would like EVs to work, but he knows they cannot. And he calmly sets about proving they cannot ever work, with a series of helpful videos. I have issues with all of the videos that I've seen, but this one is a really classic example. Well, he starts with a hypothetical petrol station, with petrol pumps and EV chargers. He claims that the fuel pumps are fed from underground tanks so that each pump can draw fuel from it, independently or simultaneously. This is true. Each car can take all that the pump can supply up to the capacity of the storage tank. Well, this is also true. He then states that an EV charging station cannot do this. This is not true. So first issue. He says the incoming grid connection can only supply, in the case he quotes, 1 megawatt. So if there is one car charging, it can get the full 350 kilowatts. But if there are 3 cars, each trying to take 350 kilowatts, the power supply will not allow this. His figures, by the way, I'm not making them up. He states that they cannot all draw 350 kilowatts, as that would exceed the supply. He expands by saying that if there are, say, 10 cars charging, each can only possibly receive a maximum of 100 kilowatts. Again, not true. Might be correct on paper, also in his mind, but the reality is very different. First, why would they install only 1 megawatt of power? I meet up with many charger installers, installing Tesla, BP, GridServe chargers, to name just a few brands. Not one of them has ever said he had installed a 1 megawatt supply feeding into 10 350 kilowatt chargers. That's just lunacy. Is this Aussie host saying that when I go to rugby with their 28 250 kilowatt chargers, none of them will get the full charge because they only put in a 1 megawatt cable? Lunacy. I don't know what total power is supplied at rugby, but when it's busy, maybe 15 or 20 bays occupied, and I talk to a number of drivers, they all seem to be getting exactly what they expect. I also film the GridServe screens showing the power they are delivering to the cars that are plugged in, and all those seem perfectly normal to me. He then states that the grid cannot cope if EVs plug in and there's an industrial estate nearby. Whoa, hold on. Your charging station is only drawing 1 megawatt. Did you forget? If a 1 megawatt draw can shut down an industrial estate, then they have a very much bigger problem than a few EVs. I do wish people would remember what their argument is. Is it excess power draw or is it restricted power draw? Well, back to his first argument. He states the mass petrol station can handle a mass of petrol cars. True, but a mass EV charging stations cannot charge a mass of cars simultaneously. Not true. They just connect a larger grid supply and all can then get as much as they need or can handle. But he has a far bigger problem in that he seems to have absolutely no idea how a charger works or an EV charges. He bases his figures on each EV drawing 350 kilowatts. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know of no EVs on sale in the world, cars that is, that will charge at 350 kilowatts. There's reported to be one, the GM Hummer, but that's got a theoretical 350 kilowatt maximum, but do we actually believe what GM tell us? and multiple videos state you can't get anywhere near this in reality. So, back on planet Earth, none but a very small number of models can even get anywhere near 300 kilowatts. A handful, less than 4 models, reach 270. No Tesla charges at more than 250. Most Mercedes or BMWs and Audi cannot exceed 200. And most makes are hovering around 150. A sizable number max out at 100 kilowatts or less. Flat out, that's it. Not 350, but of course, how fast can they charge video shows this and also states you'll never get the maximum possible charging speed ever. Mine is rated at 150 kilowatts. The fastest I've ever had is momentarily 141. Very few EV drivers will have seen the maximum their car is capable of. But of course, we EV drivers, we all know this already, that we'll never get anywhere near that in a real world situation. With a battery as low as 10% state of charge and a battery pack preconditioned to a perfect temperature, we'll only ever see anywhere near that maximum speed for a very short time, mere minutes, before it begins dropping away. My car can regularly get above 100 kilowatts on most charging sessions. As it gets above 50% state of charge, that slows down on most chargers until about 80% state of charge. The power's down to around 30 or 40 kilowatts, and above 90% it slows to an absolute crawl, possibly into single figures. And it's not just superchargers. I regularly film the charging screens on GridServe, Instavolt or Fastnet chargers. I have thousands of photos now in my library and I rarely see any speeds above 100 kilowatts. Rarely. Most are hovering in the 50 to 80 kilowatt range, and all too many are struggling to try and get up to 100% and have dropped down into the low teens or even single digits. If I put a guess together, I'd say that the average charging speed that I see, either on my own car or on any display I've ever seen, would be round the 50 kilowatts. Yeah, faster when you first plug in, but much slower later. Our host does not seem to know, or conveniently ignores, the actual charging speed people get. In his silly example, 20 cars could actually charge at the average rate they could handle simultaneously, with no car struggling to get more power than it was demanded, and none of them getting anywhere near 350 kilowatts. Now, my regular viewers will know I love my analogies, so this video host takes me back to the early 80s. I was a senior sales engineer for Honeywell in the HVAC division. One day I was in the office when a computer sales rep arrived offering an IBM computer that was designed to do word processing. See, up until this time, this is ages ago, pre-computers, they were rare. Mainly the realm of massive companies spending millions on huge computers that took up equally huge computer rooms and needed dedicated computer-trained staff. 95% of all companies used electric or manual typewriters, carbon paper. The office manager asked me if I wanted to sit in while the rep made his presentation. Yeah, did I. That was along the lines of, word processors of the future. They are quicker and better, so will save you money. In addition, they store the letters in a database. Will save hours of time retrieving letters previously typed. These two savings mean that the huge cost of the computer would be recovered really quickly from the huge savings, also allowing the secretaries to type quicker and retrieve data quicker, thus offering a really short payback on the capital cost. Well, it made absolute huge sense to him, on paper. But when it was his turn, the office manager replied by asking his own secretary how many letters a day she couldn't type because she ran out of time, and the answer was 0. In fact, all letters given to her, usually in the form back then of dictaphone tapes, were completed and posted within the target 24 hours. So the fact was, if he bought the computer, she would not type a single extra letter that she could not already type. Well, she might type each letter a minute or so quicker, but there were simply no letters waiting that couldn't be typed in time. Therefore, there was no financial saving. She was asked how many there were in the whole typing pool, it's more than a dozen typists, that failed to complete all the day's typing on time, and again, the answer was 0. Letters handed in by mid-afternoon were typed the same day, letters handed in after that were completed the next morning. No secretaries ever found themselves with more letters than they could handle. We never had a backlog. Well, the IBM rep was ready for this, and he stated that retrieval of word processor type letters, which were stored on a database on the hard drive, and they offered almost instant recovery when needed. This also would save a massive amount of time and therefore saved enough money to justify the huge cost. In reply, the office manager asked his secretary to retrieve a specific letter that he dictated about a week previously. Well, she swiveled around and rolled the chair across, opened the filing cabinet. Within a few seconds, she pulled out the carbon copy. And when asked how often she did not have enough time to file and locate letters or memos in a typical day, the answer was, well, extremely rare. So once again, while the computer word processor database might save a few seconds each search, there were no cost savings on offer. The current system worked just fine, and there would be no financial saving at all. While it would be great to have one, it could not be justified financially, or no sale. Well, getting back to EVs, I spend some of my time driving around and filming what I find. I also film my own car continuously, so I know it pretty well. So to answer this joker, who either doesn't know anything about EVs or does and deliberately lies, let me explain what is going on with power supplied to EV public charging stations. No charging station will have a power supply such that each and every charger can draw its full power simultaneously. In other words, if you have 10 350 kilowatt chargers, they will not supply 10 by 350 kilowatts to the station. Just like your house will not be capable of pulling 23 kilowatts if all the other houses attached to the same substation also simultaneously pull their maximum 23 kilowatts. Just like they don't build motorways with 15 lanes each way, just in case every single car in the UK happens to drive on the same stretch of motorway at exactly the same time. None of these can or will ever happen. So calculations are made. What is likely? What is normal? What's the worst we can envisage at the worst possible time? But why, you ask, cannot all EVs pull the maximum amount? Well, because 20 cars do not all arrive at the same time at a particular EV charging station, each with 350 kilowatt maximum charging speed capable, a totally flat battery which has been preheated to the perfect temperature. It can't happen. Whereas likewise, if the charging station is totally full when you get there and each car takes 40 minutes to charge, you'll never have to wait 40 minutes. Well, this is because some of the cars when you arrive will have just arrived moments before you, but others will have already been here for 30 or 40 minutes and are reaching their selected state of charge and about ready to go. The average wait, from experience, will be just a few minutes. But even if the wait is more than an hour, go back there a few hours later. It will be half empty. Go back after 10 o'clock and there might be one or two cars, and go back after midnight before 7 a.m. It will be totally empty for the vast majority of the 7 hours. Deserted. I know, because I've been there. And this gives us our first clue as to how to solve queues at charging stations. If everyone in a particular location goes to a particular station at 5:30 on the way home, and everyone always faces massive queues and spends the rest of the night complaining and moaning about how there aren't enough chargers, then stop. If I always go to the supermarket at 5 o'clock on a Friday and there are massive queues, guess what? I stop going there at 5 o'clock on a Friday. I either nip in at lunchtime, get what I want, or head home, have a cup of tea, and go back half an hour later. Does nobody else see this? Am I the only one? Are we really so ingrained in our habits that we sit in the same queue at the chargers every week, complaining about lack of chargers, and we never change our habits by just a few minutes? Are we so rigidly controlled by our schedules that in a week of 168 hours, we can only ever go and charge at exactly 5:30 p.m. on the way home? Well, if that is you, you may have a serious life-work balance issue. I often repeat that I charge far more than most people ever will. I can charge 4 or 6 times in a day, admittedly, only for a few kilowatts at each one just to check out the chargers. But I've never queued this year. Not once. I don't remember queuing at all last year. I can specifically remember a few occasions over the last 4 years when I have queued, but these are all years ago when there really were nowhere near enough chargers to go around. Once, years ago, the only Tesla supercharger near Hull was about 40 miles away, And there were just two, and they were V1 chargers in a hotel car park. And both were always occupied whenever I got there. Same in Leeds. There were just two V1 chargers in a business centre car park, and these were labelled as maximum power 75 kilowatts due to power restrictions on site. Guess what? They were always busy. Very slow and always busy. Now we have a supercharger a few miles away in Leeds with 12 250 kilowatt V3s and two motorway services well under 40 miles again, each with 12 chargers in each direction. Well, there are some drivers who need to charge in peak times, reps on the road, GPs visiting patients and the like, where time is money. So I never go at peak time, ever. I don't need to. I do go there and film sometimes, but don't charge. I plan my day so I never have to. Because there's an added bonus. You see, Tesla is cheaper off-peak than peak. And if queuing is an issue, they will sometimes introduce a super off-peak rate after about 11 p.m. with up to half price charging. I've seen 24p a kilowatt hour. Well, back to our helpful host. If you don't like EVs, that's fine. I'm sure they're not right for you. But do you believe what you're telling people? Is this the limit of your knowledge? Do you genuinely believe all cars will charge at 350 kilowatts for all the time they are plugged in? See, I rather doubt it. Even a tiny bit of research would show you know this is wrong. Well, if you don't like EVs, that's great. Stop watching EV videos. Stop making EV videos full of lies or misinformation. Better still, please go and test drive one. I'm Dave. Thank you for watching. If you do watch regularly and you haven't done so, please subscribe. Yeah, do it right now. Yeah, right now. It is free. Just needs a click of your mouse, but it makes such a difference to a small channel like mine. Also, for those who can, have a look at our Patreon page. Massive thank you to all who do contribute towards the running cost of the channel via Patreon. I am most grateful. You get a mention in the description and occasionally by me in a video. I do fund the channel out of my pension and savings. We're not rich, flash and big. Becoming a Patreon member will help us financially. Just a few pounds a month that will allow us to grow the channel, visit places and investigate things that we just cannot afford at the moment. Contrary to popular belief, this YouTuber is not making thousands of pounds a month. We are growing. It's far from a living at present. You wouldn't want to see me poor, would you?